A core area was a geographically based organizational structure the United States Army used to accomplish administrative, training and tactical tasks from 1920 to 1942. Each core area included divisions of the regular Army, organized reserve and National Guard of the United States, developed as a result of serious mobilization problems during World War I. This organizational scheme provided a framework to rapidly expand the Army in time of war or national emergency such as the Great Depression. The 9 core areas, created by the War Plans Division under authority of War Department General Order No. 50 on 20 August 1920, had identical responsibilities for providing peacetime administrative and logistical support to the Army's mobile units as was provided by the 6 territorial departments they replaced. In addition, the core areas took on the responsibilities for post and installation support units created during World War I. Core areas had the added responsibility for planning and implementing mobilization plans for all regular Army, National Guard, and organized reserve mobile units in the respective geographic areas, the development and administration of hundreds of new organized reserve and reserve officers training corps units, and managing the personnel records for thousands of reserve officers, enlisted personnel, ROTC cadets, and citizens military training camp candidates. The composition of the core areas divided the United States geographically by state lines and population density into 9 multi-state area commands roughly equal in population. Each core area was responsible for organizing 2 tactical corps consisting of 3 infantry divisions each. Each core area also had responsibility for organizing various other field Army, General Headquarters Reserve, Zone of the Interior, and Communications Zone units. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 8th, and 9th Corps areas also organized units to man various fixed coastal defenses. The core areas were further grouped into 3 Army areas of 2 field armies each. Early Army administrative units. For the century preceding 1920, the U.S. Army was geographically divided into a series of military divisions, departments, and smaller districts and subdistricts. Departments and divisions were numbered and named for their geographic location. Before the War of 1812, these administrative units were geographically named, starting with the Department of the East and Department of the West. About 1815, the areas were numbered until after the Civil War. After the Civil War, the system used until after World War I was again geographically identified, i.e., Department of the East, Department of the Missouri, and subordinate units were called divisions or districts. The last reorganization of departments was done in 1917 after the beginning of World War I. National Defense Act of 1920 and establishment of core area-level organizations, authorized by the National Defense Act of 1920, which amended the National Defense Act of 1916. 9 multi-state-sized core areas were established on 20 August 1920 by the U.S. Army Chief of Staff through War Department General Order No. 50. The core areas were formed for administration, training, and tactical control of the Army, replacing the 6 geographical military departments into which the continental United States had been divided since 1917 and with little variation. Since the Civil War, 3 overseas commands, the Hawaiian Department, Panama Canal Department, and the Philippine Department, continued to be identified as departments. The 1920 Act was a realization that the mobilization of a citizen army could no longer meet the defense needs of the United States, and for the first time placed an emphasis on peacetime preparedness. Yet with its passage, Congress never fully funded the program. The Congress did recognize the value of a professional officer education program by enhancing existing general service schools such as the Command and General Staff School at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and the Army War College at Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. The act authorized the establishing new schools to meet modern military educational needs, such as the Army Industrial College in 1924. 31 additional special service schools were established or improved to provide training to the various branches of the Army. The Act established the division as a basic Army unit, replacing the pre-World War I notion of the regiment in war planning. Tactically and administratively, each Corps area commander was the senior Army officer for his geographical area, typically functioned as a commanding general of an existing regular Army Corps division in their area. During times of civil unrest, labor strikes, or natural disasters, Corps area commanders provided Army resources needed to address the emergency. Each Corps area was allocated 2 Type Corps and 6 infantry divisions. The Corps were numbered in accord with the Corps area designation, i.e., 1st and 11th Corps in the 1st Corps area. The lower-numbered corps consisted of 1 regular Army and 2 National Guard divisions among the various states of the Corps area. The higher-numbered corps each consisted of 3 divisions, also assigned by state boundaries, of the newly established organized reserve. By 1925, in the face of steady Coolidge administration and congressional budget cutting, the United States Army only had 3 active regular divisions nationwide. The remainder of its divisions, both regular and reserve components, only existed on paper. The amended National Defense Act also grouped 3 Corps areas into an Army-level mobilization organization whose boundaries were also identical for the 2 type armies located within them. For example, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Corps areas, and the 1st and 4th Armies, comprised the 1st Army area. The 1921 mobilization planning that created the 6th Field Army Headquarters did not envision a need for active Field Army-level commands in peacetime, and thus the headquarters were constituted in the organized reserve rather than the regular army. Until fully activated with its own headquarters staff, an army area was typically jointly staffed, headquartered and commanded by the most senior corps commander in that area. Between 1927 and 1933, all 6 Field Army headquarters were deactivated as the Army wrestled with structure, mobilization, and manpower issues. Corps area and Army area organizations 1921 to 32. An Army area included 3 Corps areas, and in the early years was concurrently staffed and headquartered with one of the Corps areas. For example, 1st Army Area Headquarters staff was also the 2nd Corps Area Headquarters staff based at Fort J at Governor's Island in New York, New York. 1st Army Area included 1st Army and 4th Army. 1st Corps Area replaced the Northeastern Department and was headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts, encompassing Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Connecticut. 2nd Corps Area replaced the Eastern Department, headquartered at Fort J on Governor's Island in New York City and encompassed New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and at various times, Puerto Rico. 1st Infantry Division was the only active division in the area, alongside the 27th Infantry Division of the New York National Guard, the 44th Infantry Division of the New Jersey, New York, and Delaware National Guards, the 21st Cavalry Division of the New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and New Jersey National Guards, and the 77th, 78th, and 98th Infantry Divisions and the 61st Cavalry Division of the Organized Reserves. This was the organization that existed in the Second Corps area for the duration of the peace period. Third Corps area variously headquartered at Fort McHenry and Fort Howard in Baltimore, Maryland, and included Pennsylvania, Maryland, District of Columbia, and Virginia. From 1921 to 1927, Washington, D.C. was withdrawn from Third Corps area and established as the District of Washington. Second Army area included Second Army and Fifth Army. Fourth Corps area replaced the Southeastern Department based in Charleston, South Carolina, and was originally headquartered then transferred to Atlanta, Georgia, and encompassed the states of Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Fifth Corps area was variously headquartered at Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indiana, and Fort Hays in Columbus, Ohio, and encompassed Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia. Sixth Corps area was headquartered in Chicago, Illinois, then Fort Sheridan, Illinois, and covered the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Illinois. Third Army area included Third Army and Sixth Army. Seventh Corps area was headquartered at the Omaha Army Depot and Fort Crook in Omaha, Nebraska, and included Arkansas, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska. Eighth Corps area variously headquartered in Dallas and Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas, replaced the Southern Department and included Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. Ninth Corps area, headquartered at the Presidio of San Francisco, California, replaced the Western Department and included Alaska, Idaho, Montana, California, Wyoming, Washington, Utah, Nevada, and Oregon. The Civilian Conservation Corps were organized roughly along Army Corps area boundaries since most of the logistical administration and support for this 1930s Great Depression era emergency work program was provided by the U.S. Army. The Corps areas provided regular Army officers to oversee these tasks. In time, they were replaced by officers of the Army Reserve, freeing regular Army officers to return to their assigned duties and providing practical experience to the reserve officers. The end of the Corps area concept. General Douglas MacArthur, the Army's Chief of Staff, believed that the 1921 mobilization plan was based on unsound assumptions and that the Army required active field Army headquarters before the start of any mobilization to manage the integration and training of subordinate units as they mobilized. He also concluded that the existing 3-Army area, 6-Army arrangement was too ponderous to field a force that might be needed in a hurry and that existing mobilization plans were not flexible enough to tailor to various war plans then in existence. After a War Department study, MacArthur on the 9th of August 1932 constituted 3 new Army headquarters in the regular Army and outlined the organization of what became known as the 4-Army Plan, which effectively abolished the 3-Army area, 6-Army system. On the 3rd of October 1940, the War Department transferred tactical command functions to General Headquarters, U.S. Army, separating the field armies from the Corps areas. Corps areas were then limited to the zone of the interior functions as service commands and the field armies assumed control of all tactical tactical units. In 1942, after the start of World War II and by executive order, the Army-level organizations took to training of the field as home defense and combat commands under the control of Army ground forces. In March 1942, home defense and training activities were assigned to the newly formed Eastern, Central, Southern, and Western Defense Commands, which overlaid the existing corps areas. The geographical corps areas were redesigned as numbered service commands under Services of Supply, renamed in 1943 as Army Service Forces to serve the Army's supply system and perform administration and housekeeping functions within the United States in support of the war effort, such as the issuance of Army serial numbers and the operation of induction centers and Army posts located in the United States and its territories. By this time, the corps area boundaries and departments experienced some minor readjustments. Eastern Defense Command 1st Corps Area ME, VT, NH, MA, CT, RE 2nd Corps Area NY, NJ, the 3rd Corps Area PAMD, VA, DC, 4th Corps Area NC, SC, GAR, FL, AL, MS, TN. Central Defense Command 5th Corps Area O in KY, West Virginia 6th Corps Area IL, ME, Y, 7th Corps Area MO, Ks, NB, COIAMN, ND, SD, Way. Southern Defense Command 8th Corps Area RLA, TX, OK, nanometer. Western Defense Command 9th Corps Area WAP or CAID, Mount, NV, UT, AK. Hawaiian Department, Panama Canal Department, Philippine Department, Puerto Rican Department. Post-war organization. On the 11th of June 1946, Army Service Forces and the 9 service commands areas it administered were abolished as the result of a long-planned post-war reorganization and downsizing. The service commands were replaced by 6 field Army-level organizations. These 6 Army areas, though similar in name, operated on a functional rather than geographic basis but roughly followed along the old Corps areas boundaries. 1st Army Area, headquartered at Fort J in New York, included ME, NH, VT, MA, RE, CT, NJ, and Winder. 2nd Army Area, headquartered at Baltimore, Maryland, included PAMD, VA, West Virginia, O, in and KY. 3rd Army Area, headquartered variously in rented office space in downtown Atlanta and in 1946 at Fort McPherson in Atlanta, Georgia, included NC, SC, GAR, FL, AL, TN and MIS. 4th Army Area, headquartered at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas, included TX, RLA, OK, and nanometer. 5th Army Area, headquartered at Fort Sheridan near Chicago, Illinois, included IL, ME, Y, MN, IA, MO, Ks, NI, ND, SD, WAY, and CO. 6th Army Area, headquartered at Presidio of San Francisco, California, included WA or ID, Mount, UT, NV, and CA. The post-war 7th United States Army in Germany and 8th United States Army in Korea were outside the continental United States as they remain today, but under different names. This organizational scheme served until the Army reorganization of 1973.